So, business as usual, which also happens to be grotesquely corrupt, is still going on behind the scenes. This is what we learned with the Biden team recently. Biden Pentagon pick could make up to $1.7 million from leaving Raytheon. Make $1.7 million from leaving Raytheon. That seems like a problem to me. What do you think about that? So, of course, they're referring to General Lloyd Austin. Sits on the board or whatever it is. And I just want to read you this one part from the article, which I think says quite a bit. Quote, "It is not uncommon for defense secretaries to have ties to contractors." Not uncommon for that. 3 of the people who led the Pentagon in the Trump administration had defense contractor connections. Former Secretary James Mattis was on the board at General Dynamics. Former Secretary Mark Esper was Raytheon's top lobbyist. I remember that, and I remember covering that. And former Acting Secretary Patrick Shanahan was an executive at Boeing. So in other words, this is how it works. They go directly to the defense contractors to get people who end up controlling our foreign policy, shaping our foreign policy, leading when it comes to our foreign policy. I don't know how this alone isn't a gigantic scandal. This is as dirty as it gets, as corrupt as it gets. I mean, these are bribes. That's what they are. $1.7 million from Raytheon, and then he's going to be in a position where he makes foreign policy decisions. Guess what, guys? I'll go out on a limb here and guess that he's going to be in favor of more money to Raytheon, more support for Raytheon, and more war so they can keep the business cycle going and keep business as usual going. Could you imagine if you take $1.7 million from Raytheon, is it likely that when you have a position of power, now all of a sudden he's going to be in favor of ending all the wars? Ending all the wars and no more contracts going to these so-called defense contractors, which are really offense contractors. What are the chances he's going to say that? 0%. 0% chance that he says that. 0% chance any of the people that Trump picked said that, and they didn't say that because they also were being paid by the defense industry. This is also something that happens with the media, by the way. They bring on like foreign policy experts, and they don't disclose that these people are paid by Raytheon, Boeing, Honeywell, all the different defense contractors. And then lo and behold, they end up advocating either for hard power, boots on the ground, or soft power, like drone strikes. So, funny, the spectrum of debate that's allowed is, are you in favor of boots on the ground, hardcore imperialism, or are you in favor of soft power, like drone strikes? That's the spectrum of debate that's allowed. You don't hear anybody advocate for, let's not do the drone strikes and let's get out of there. Nobody argues for that. This is what's called the Overton window, and it's shifted in a pro-war, neoconservative direction on foreign policy, and it's been like that for decades. And this is one of the reasons why. Because people who are in positions of power are corrupted, paid by the defense industry. People who are on TV to talk about this stuff are corrupted. They're paid by the defense industry. And then you're surprised when there's consensus. And this is so disconnected from the reality of the world and the polling. The polling is stunning on this stuff. It's absolutely stunning. The polling, first of all, they don't poll it nearly enough. Like, they need to poll it way more than they currently poll it. But it's 20% or less support for all these different wars that we're in, respectively. Whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, you name it. 20% or less for all of them. And we're supposed to be a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. That's what we're supposed to be. But the people are just ignored. Even on matters of life and death, even on matters of war, these people will casually send your kid to go fight and die in a country for a fight that makes no sense. And you want to get out and they brush it off. They don't listen to you. They act like it's not even true. And then they do the faux patriotism thing as well, which is a huge problem. The whole, support our troops. But when they say support our troops, what they mean is shut your brain off and don't question our foreign policy. Fall in line, do the bidding of the corrupted leaders who are imperialists and take it. And if you question our foreign policy, they malign that and smear that as, oh, you don't love the troops. You don't respect the troops. No, I think there's no better way to love the troops and respect the troops than to make sure they're only used when necessary. The only time I'm okay with violence is to protect from imminent attack against us, against the country. Self-defense. That's the only standard that makes sense to me. But what we do now is not that at all, not even close to that. Not even close to that. Post-World War II, how many times would we have used our military if we had that standard? You tell me. I don't know. I'm asking. We would have fought World War II because Hitler was a genuine threat, and then what? Wouldn't have done Vietnam. Wouldn't have done Iraq or Afghanistan. And by the way, that's a lot of money that we could then use to rebuild our infrastructure, do a New Deal. I don't understand why this isn't a huge issue where politicians argue, not only do I want to do a New Deal, I want the United States of America to have the number one infrastructure in the world. I want to have an A+ infrastructure, A++ infrastructure, where it becomes the rest of the world is jealous. They look at us, they look up to us in terms of how advanced and modern our infrastructure is. That's what I want to do. And we could do that if we stopped waging endless wars for no good reason. Business as usual. And it's the saddest thing in the world that all the people who are Democrats who correctly criticize Trump for picking General Dynamics, Raytheon, lobbyists, executives to be in this position for Secretary of Defense, they criticized that and they were correct to criticize that. Now it's going to be mum's the word when it comes to Lloyd Austin. And vice versa. So the Republicans were cool with Trump picking these people, and now Biden does it. They might bring this up and say, oh, this is unacceptable. It's a conflict of interest. For the love of God, you need to look at these things in a principled way and be objective about it and be fair-minded about it. Don't just play partisan politics. But this is a never-ending cycle of corruption, and it's terrible. It needs to be called out. It needs to be stopped. We need to imagine a future that has better politics than this. Open bribery, open corruption, leading to endless war. That's pretty much as evil as it gets.